The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
The evidence will prove that Corey Richens murdered Eric for his money and to get a fresh start at life.
To this day, the medical examiner, the professional that's the head of declaring how people die in the state of Utah, has never been able to determine the manner of Eric Richens' death. The Richens family hired a private investigator, and they paid that investigator to spend every waking minute digging up as much dirt as he possibly could.
We're just a few hours away from live testimony in the murder trial of Corey Richens. Court ending early on Wednesday, but the state's evidence technician is expected back on the stand for cross. We're going to preview the day ahead. Plus, the search for Nancy Guthrie continues this morning. No suspects, no persons of interest. So was this investigation botched by the Pima County Sheriff's Department? We'll talk about it as the search is closing in on nearly 30 days since the 84-year-old went missing. We're wondering, will we ever learn what really happened to Nancy Guthrie? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you, and welcome to Opening Statements, my friends. I'm Julie Grant, and this is the show where we get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. We got a great show planned, so let's get it started. Grab that cup of coffee. It's time for my opening statement. What if it's never solved? What if Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping is never solved? Seems like many of us across the country have been on pins and needles ever since we heard the frightening news. A sweet 84-year-old woman taken from her bed in the middle of the night, and after 25 long days of searching, is nowhere to be found. My heart breaks for the Guthrie family, just like yours does. And every time I see Savannah in one of those videos, I think about how she must be in an unimaginable amount of shock and pain and grief. It seems to me that the perpetrators wanted her to be experiencing this anguish, and that is both sick and it's terrifying. And what if investigators never get the answer of who did this? What if Nancy Guthrie is never found? That could be the reality of the situation. This has undoubtedly become the biggest kidnapping case of our lifetimes. But the burning question is whether we'll ever get to see it solved, and if we'll get to see Nancy brought back home. All of us here at Court TV are hoping and praying for that. That's my opening statement on this Thursday. Let me know if you like it. Right now, time for your daily docket.
I remember Melody, she had blood all on her arm. I remember her blood was like getting on the side of me because I was like kind of like laying on the side of her.
In Georgia, we've got testimony resuming in the trial of Colin Gray. Court's going to start up at 9 a.m. Eastern. In Michigan, after a jury view on Wednesday, testimony set to resume in the murder trial of Dale Warner. The first witness of the day is set to take the stand around 9 a.m. Eastern. We will keep you posted. And in Utah, we've got the state's case against Corey Richens set to resume this morning. We're going to go there live when it does. The jury is set to be back roughly 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And that is our top story for you, the murder trial of Corey Richens. The Utah mom facing a jury for allegedly murdering her husband Eric by poisoning him with a fatal dose of fentanyl back in 2022. On Wednesday, court ended early, but the defense did present some initial cross questions to the state's lead evidence technician. Here's a look back at those moments.
And where was the quetiapine bottle found?
It was in one of the baskets that was in that linen closet in the master bathroom.
Okay. So what happened to the hydrocodone bottle that was sent with the body of the decedent?
It's under the medical examiner's office protocol to keep that until they're done.
So you don't have that bottle?
I do not know.
So all we have is a picture of that bottle?
Correct.
So it has never been taken for testing by you to anyone?
Correct.
So if there was fentanyl residue in that empty pill bottle from 2016, we won't know it because you never took it to be tested, right?
I was never given the bottle, no.
Where there was a little dot above the refrigerator where you said that some gummies in a clear plastic bag were found, right?
Correct.
And you didn't go above the kitchen and open that cabinet and take any pictures that morning?
No, I did not.
Since you were personally the one who knows where every single thing was found, isn't it true that all the gummies, with the exception of the gummies that were found in the jacket in the closet, were all stored high up where children would not be able to reach them?
I believe so, yes.
You mentioned when you were describing paraphernalia that you did not see any paraphernalia that day. Is that right?
The day of the death?
Yes.
Correct.
And you mentioned paraphernalia as things that we might be familiar with, which would be like bongs or vape pens or scales or little baggies you would put drugs in or something like that, right?
Correct.
Things that would store drugs.
Correct.
In your experience, when you've been to scenes, have you experienced where people put pills in different bottles than what the bottle actually says they are when they're illicit drugs?
Are you talking about like prescription bottles? Mm-hmm. Yes.
So if you saw an empty prescription bottle near the body that had expired 6 years before, could that possibly be paraphernalia? If it was used to store illicit drugs?
If it was used to store illicit drugs, it could be considered.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so what's day number 4 going to have in store for us? We're going to find out together. In the meantime, let's talk about where things are so far. Let's bring in our guest analyst. So pleased to have on the program this morning, Chief Chris Anderson and Attorney John Phillips. Good morning to you both. All right, so I want to just get kind of the bird's eye view take, looking at this trial, looking at everything objectively. I want to get your assessments. Chief, would you start off our conversation, please?
Sure. I mean, looking at the trial, it's kind of hard to judge a trial and how a jury is taking things in the midst of that trial. Me being an investigator, anytime I've been in a trial, I would try to gauge where the juries are, what the testimony is saying, and how people are reading it. But it's extremely hard, so you have to just take each day, do your best in putting forth your message to the jurors and the judge in these cases. And really push for the best outcome possible.
Mm-hmm, right. John Phillips, tell us your impressions so far, please.
I'm excited to watch this one. We haven't gotten into the real popcorn yet. The popcorn's going to come from the guy that she had the affair with, Robert Josh Grossman, who's going to talk about text messages or be asked about text messages about getting millions in a divorce. And marrying, again, over and over and over, Julie, people putting the affair and all of that in writing before they kill their husband. It's almost cliche. The other big witness coming is Carmen Lauber, who was the housekeeper or something that was the source of the drugs. The bad news for the prosecution is going to get into just how complicated it is when you have a victim who had addiction issues, who was dealing with stuff, and where it came from and why is the reasonable doubt question.
Mm-hmm. Defense attorney Catherine Nestor started her cross of that evidence technician, suggesting that she wasn't thorough in her job. She made some points about saying how she didn't collect any evidence from the kitchen or the basement where she made the suggestion the basement was where Corey Richens might have stored the liquor. Chief Anderson, how big of a problem or not is that?
You know, it is always a big problem when defense can point out, when the defense attorneys can point out things that you haven't done. You know, we always had a saying when I was working cases, it's not what you did, it's what you didn't do. Defense attorneys are not looking for what you did, but in order to instill some reasonable doubt for their defendant, they are going to talk about what you didn't do. And sometimes they can hit on something with a jury that is that resonates with them, and then they'll keep hitting on it and add more and more and more. And that's how we find a lot of those cases that when we look at it on the forefront, we think that this person is guilty as all get out. And then on the back end, once they've hit on those areas that you didn't do something right or you mishandled something in the investigation, and that's the reason why my clients should be freed. Sometimes, you know, you have those people at the walk. So that's standard for any defense attorney.
Right. Yeah, that's good lawyering, going for those omissions. Absolutely. Chief, thank you for that. Let's take a look back at one of those cross questions. This was focused on the THC gummies that were apparently recovered from the Richens home.
You also did not go inside the cabinet over the toilet when you were taking pictures of the bathroom and open the cabinet and see if there were gummies in there, did you?
I did not.
Okay. Also, there was a picture that has come in your Matterport where there was a little dot above the refrigerator where you said that some gummies in a clear plastic bag were found, right?
Correct.
And you didn't go above the kitchen and open that cabinet and take any pictures that morning?
No, I did not. You're referring to the morning of the death?
Correct.
Correct.
Since you were personally the one who knows where every single thing was found, isn't it true that all the gummies, with the exception of the gummies that were found in the jacket in the closet, were all stored high up where children would not be able to reach them?
I believe so, yes.
John Phillips, what's the point here? Responsible gummy ownership? Your thoughts?
Correct. You know, the gummies, you know, is almost a red herring, but that was a good point, that if you're going to be prudent as a parent and have, you know, all of your regulated, you know, drugs and paraphernalia up high, why would this be different? And again, I don't know that it was. And the allegations here are, I think, 5 times the lethal limit, you know, fentanyl laced Moscow Mule that was celebrating. Like, and that just doesn't make sense that you know, we're going to overtry the THC, but the gummies, but you kind of have to. Like, it's, again, if you got to put the investigators on trial, you know, you got to find things that are inconsistent or will be good for reasonable doubt as you tie your story together.
Yeah, exactly. John, Chris, thank you both so much. We're not done talking about Corey Richens. We just have to hit our first break of the hour. Go get some more coffee. Here's what's coming up next on Opening Statements. We're going to talk about the cross-examination of the lead technician resuming this morning. So what does defense counsel have left for that witness? Things ended abruptly on Wednesday, so we'll find out together. Plus, we're going to be talking about the Nancy Guthrie case. The reward's now at $1 million, and we're wondering, was this thing botched from the start? That's next in What's Trending in True Crime.
Right now, we believe Nancy is still out there. We want her home. Our department, the Sheriff's Department, along with all of our partners at the FBI, have been working around the clock. And we just want her home and find a way to get to the bottom of all of this, just as you do.
The Court TV podcast will return.
First of all, the sheriff's theories don't really matter. It's those who are investigating this case, their theories, their thoughts, and they share that and work that together as a team. And all of those possibilities are something we all look at and consider. But it'd be very irresponsible of me to give out certain key pieces of this case so that the public can know.
Now for what's trending in true crime as the search for Nancy Guthrie continues this morning. There's some new questions being raised about whether this investigation was botched from the beginning. The mother of the Today Show co-host, Savannah Guthrie, has now been missing for 26 days. There was a lot of activity at Nancy Guthrie's Tucson home on Wednesday, and we saw several vehicles drive in and out of her property. We're also hearing that authorities are wrapping up their investigation at the home and preparing to return the property to the Guthrie family. But some are blaming the sheriff in Pima County for how he's handled the investigation from the outset. Here he is back on February 5th.
Suspects. I know there's been a lot out there about suspects, and I want to be very clear. At this time, we have not identified a suspect or a person of interest in this case. We are working our best to do that. But to be clear, we have nobody of interest or any suspects that you would consider a prime suspect. We're just not there. We're not there yet.
So how did we get here, and what could have been done differently to find Nancy Guthrie? Let's bring in our power panel. Still with me, retired homicide detective, now police chief, Chris Anderson. Want to welcome in retired NYPD detective and sergeant and the co-host of the Gold Shield show, Dan Murphy. And Road Patrol Live's creator and host, John DePietro, who is there in Tucson, Arizona right now near Nancy Guthrie's home. John, let me begin with you. Set the scene for us there where you are this morning, if you would, please.
Julie, day 26, and yesterday after I signed off with you, we had tremendous activity here at the home behind me. It's as you can tell, it's obviously very dark, but some of the things that really stand out, number one, that's the most activity we've seen at the home really since week one, when we saw some FBI agents up on the roof. It's also, what stood out was apparently they had some prosecutors. So we had some of the detectives from Pima County plus FBI agents, and they were very, very meticulous inside, outside the house, going around. We did see an SUV pull into the garage, still unsure. There was speculation, maybe a family member, then other people felt that that could have been the prosecutor. But what is also notable here, Julie, is Savannah's own network made it be known that from day one, now we're learning that since she posted the video about the $1 million reward, that they've received a lot of tips. Her own network made it known that Savannah, the Guthrie family, from day one, they wanted to put out the $1 million reward, but they were discouraged by the sheriff. Now, they didn't have to let that out. This house, Nancy Guthrie's house behind me, there's been a lot of speculation that should have remained a closed crime scene for much longer than it was. The sheriff released it after a short amount of time. Annie Guthrie's home, which is about 11 minutes from where I am, about 2.5 miles. That's where Nancy Guthrie was on that Saturday night. There was speculation that should have been sealed off as a crime scene. The sheriff admittedly said, he's not used to his words being taken so literally. And I think what also stood out to a lot of us in the media was the fact that early on, the sheriff, who did a lot of interviews, was saying different things, but he said that she was literally plucked from her bed. He kind of walked that back a little bit. But then in that video that Savannah just posted, she said that her mother was literally like plucked from the bed. So on day 26, there was a tremendous hope yesterday that maybe they are moving forward with this, and maybe they have something concrete. But right now on this day 26, they don't have any that we know of leads or suspects.
Wow. John DePietro, as always, you gave us a lot there. Thank you. I want to kind of back the truck up a little bit to something you said, and I have to be clear, Court TV has not confirmed this independently, but you shared that NBC has reported that Savannah Guthrie wanted to offer the $1 million from the outset and that the sheriff discouraged it. John, do you know why? Have they reported as to why he discouraged it?
Well, a couple things about that, Julie. Let's be logical. I don't think NBC would release that against Savannah's wishes, or if it weren't true. What they were told, again, according to NBC News, that the sheriff discouraged it for fear that they would flood the zone too much. They'd get too many false leads. But I thought that was very interesting, because Savannah, they were criticized. Why wasn't the reward larger? This also comes on the heels that they've now made a $500,000 donation or, the Center for Missing and Exploited Children. But that's very notable that in that video, where she also said, if you have information, contact the FBI. She didn't say the Pima County Sheriff. And the fact that she wanted it known through her own network that from day one, the Guthrie family wanted to come out, day one, with a $1 million reward. I think that was very notable.
Oh, it sure is. John, thank you so much again for all of that. Detective Sergeant Dan Murphy, let me go to you next, please. What are your thoughts on the way that the Pima County Sheriff's Department handled this from the outset, including that new information John DePietro shared with us about perhaps the discouragement of offering that big reward early on?
Well, let me start out by saying that hindsight is 20/20, and I don't like to always play Monday morning quarterback on everything law enforcement does. I don't think that's fair. I do think, however, that there have been some missteps, and I think initially the response to the scene and the noticing of the blood should have been indicative of a violent crime, not just a missing person. So perhaps they started off on the wrong trajectory by labeling it as such and letting the world in on what was going on without trying to keep a lid on it more than they could have potentially. Secondly, releasing the crime scene as early as they did allowed for higher scrutiny of any evidence that is recovered at that scene after when they had to go back. So that became problematic for any future case, should there be one. Statements to the media such as "we have no suspects at this time," to me, are ill-advised. Why would you send that out there? You never want to give your adversary or the persons involved any indication of where you really are with your investigation. Leave them in the dark. Let them think that you're close. Let them think whatever they want, but don't tell the world that. That's my opinion. As far as the evidence with the money that the family wanted to put forward, suppressing that amount, I don't know the rationale for that. I can't speak to that directly, except I would say when the family wishes to put forward a reward and they think it will create a wider net gathering of information, you would let them do that, especially a high-profile case like this. The whole world already knows about this case. The tips that are coming in, the people that are reporting things, it's going to happen regardless of the amount of money. The initial amounts of money for reward to me seemed minuscule and almost embarrassing in many ways. This is a family with means. Why wouldn't they offer more? It was really not a good move in my opinion.
Exactly. Excellent points you gave us, Detective Sergeant Dan Murphy. Thanks so much for all of that. Last but certainly not least on our power panel, Detective Chief Chris Anderson. I want to get your thoughts going back, in particular to the release of the crime scene that, as Sergeant Murphy noted, allowed the world to see all the blood on the porch. The media was able to walk right up and get a look at that. I'm curious, in your view, how big of a misstep do you think that was?
Hindsight, just like our other panelists said, hindsight is always 20/20. I'm hoping that there were homicide investigators embedded in this case investigation from the onset. Being, coming from a homicide background, you never want to release a crime scene too early, ever, ever, ever. Now, there are several things that I've seen that have happened that just it's like fingernails on a chalkboard to a homicide investigator. But if you think once you have to understand the rationale. On one side of this investigation, it's a missing person. The other side, where I am, is a homicide investigation, and you should work every case as it is a homicide until it's not. That way, you don't. When you're working a missing persons case, it's not frowned upon as much if you allow people up to the front of the doors, or if you allow multiple people to walk into a crime scene. But in homicide, nobody's walking in that crime scene but the people that are responsible for investigating that case, the ones that'll be testifying in that case in the long run. So yeah, these are huge missteps, and I'm not being critical of the sheriff's office or in any way or shape or form. I'm just coming from my profession and my experience. Work every case like this, like you would work it as a homicide, until it's not, especially a case this high profile.
Boy, that's really helpful insights. Chief Chris Anderson, thank you so much for that. We have many more questions for all of you. Stand by, please. John, Dan, Chris, we're going to hit a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking about whether we'll ever know what really happened to Nancy Guthrie as we spotlight the case of the 84-year-old missing mom. And we're gearing up for day 4 of the murder trial of Corey Richens. We got the cross of that lead evidence technician coming up. We're wondering if her defense team can tip the scales of justice.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Every hour and minute and second and every long night has been agony since then, of worrying about her and fearing for her and aching for her, and most of all, just missing her,
It's day 26 and the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. And even the Guthrie family seems to be speculating that their mother could have passed. We know she has a heart condition. We know she needs medicine that she's believed to not have with her. So how does this investigation move forward? And what if the case never gets solved? Let's bring back in our power panel and talk about that. Still with me, Chief Chris Anderson, Detective and Sergeant Dan Murphy, and the host of Road Patrol Live, John DePietro. Detective Sergeant Murphy, I'll start with you, please. Your thoughts on whether we'll see this case solved?
I think that would take a crystal ball, Julie. The fact of the matter is that there are many, many unsolved homicides in this country every year. It is not an automatic. It's not television where the case happens and the detectives follow up and they make an arrest. It doesn't always happen that way. There are many cases. There are many cases where bodies are not recovered. It does happen. It is not uncommon. In this situation, I say anything is possible. We could find the body. There's a small chance, I would say, that she's somewhere and she's alive. We don't know that. We don't know what the investigators know as well. But given the video put out by Savannah Guthrie, I would say the family's clearly of the opinion that at this point they simply want the remains back so they can have that piece of closure of this terrible case. And that is probably based upon their discussions with the FBI and the sheriff's office and what they know. It's something that many people don't ever want to really come to terms with, but many homicides are simply never solved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sadly, you're exactly right. Chief Anderson, I want to ask you about investigators' actions. At what point do things change from a missing persons mission to rescue her to a recovery mission? And do you think that has already happened in this case? I would appreciate your insights on that.
Yeah, so, look, that's why I said what I said in the last segment. You want homicide investigators embedded in this investigation from the get-go, because their minds work a little bit different than just regular investigators. They're always thinking of the long game. So it's rather hard to say whether or not they have shifted into just recovery of a body versus the missing person aspect. It's very hard to say. I'm hoping that that's not the case because in a moment's notice, things could happen and it goes back into that mode. And if you've shifted your personnel to other means, then it takes that much longer to get that personnel back up to speed and in the mode of let's go recover. Let's go find out where she is. So I'm hoping that's not the case. It may be. It's kind of hard to tell. But I know as real investigators don't stop. They never stop working cases. They never stop. I've been retired now since 2016, hadn't worked a homicide since 2011, but I still work in my mind on some of the cases that I think could have been solved. So, yeah, I'm hoping that they are still in investigative mode, even being 20 plus days in this investigation.
I appreciate that, Chief. Yeah, I appreciate the unwavering commitment that people like you and Sergeant Murphy have had to the job and still have, and fighting for victims and doing the great work that most people can't do. We thank you for that. John DePietro, I want to go back to you with the community sentiment around the question of will this case ever be solved? Tell us what you're hearing, if you would, please.
Julie, the neighbors, there's fear around here, and there is fear of this investigation has never left this general 2.5-3 mile radius here from Nancy Guthrie's home here in the Catalina foothills. I like when your panelists mentioned that from the outset, this should have been described as, we saw the blood. This wasn't a missing person. This was a violent abduction that took place. And on top of that, where this also goes, people need to remember that second week of the investigation, very, very distracted by those ransom notes that arrived at TMZ, and there was also a local station. And that seemed to be the direction. We haven't heard anything about that now. That was just some scammer out there, but it's very odd. I talked to a lot of the neighbors around here, Julie. I see, as I said, more lights. I see more people installing security. What is mystifying them is how did someone come right here and just literally scoop her out and then escape in that manner? Who is that individual? How long were they stalking here? I know that a lot of people kind of upset when the sheriff said this could take years, months. Who knows how long this would take? But right now, I think also one of the panelists mentioned, we still don't know what the police know. For instance, yesterday, we still don't know how that person got into the home. We do know that they exited through apparently the front door because their blood was found there. But there's still so much about this case that we don't know.
That's a great point to end the segment on, John. You're exactly right. We don't know what law enforcement knows. We hope they're a lot further ahead than they're letting us know. And we hope this case is solved. Prayers up for the Guthrie family. Excellent insights from you all. John DePietro, Chris Anderson, Dan Murphy, thank you all so very much. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next on Opening Statements. We're going to be going to Utah and talking about the murder trial of defendant Corey Richens. And will the upcoming cross of the lead evidence technician tip the scales of justice?
When you discovered him, was he on the bed? Yes.
He was laying on his side like normal.
Okay.
I just thought he was cold. It was cold in there, so I put the blanket on him.
Yeah.
But his body just felt like heavy.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Welcome back to Court TV. In Opening Statements, let's talk about what could tip the scales of justice. And we're wondering, could it come down to the cross-examination in the murder trial of Corey Richens? Well, her defense team pointed out some possible mistakes on the cross of the examination of the lead evidence technician. Let's take a look.
So what happened to the hydrocodone bottle that was sent with the body of the decedent?
It's under the medical examiner's office protocol to keep that until they're done.
So you don't have that bottle?
I do not know.
So all we have is a picture of that bottle?
Correct.
So it has never been taken for testing by you to anyone?
Correct.
So if there was fentanyl residue in that empty pill bottle from 2016, we won't know it because you never took it to be tested, right?
I was never given the bottle, no.
Oh, okay. So the defense attorney wasted no time continuing to insinuate that things might have been missed by this technician. Let's watch some more.
And you also did not take any pictures of the closet.
Correct.
And later, we've had pictures be introduced. When you did your Matterport walkthrough, we saw an image of a green jacket where the gummies were kind of sticking out of a pocket. That green jacket, you can't say whether that was there the day that you were there or not.
I cannot. And just to clarify, I did take, I think, 2 photos of the closet, just not that side of the closet.
Okay. So you took photos of and I'm using this from my experience, but in my house, there's a woman's side of the closet, which is much bigger, and a very small man's side of the closet. Is that the way it was set up in Ms. Richens' house?
I don't recall.
Okay. And you also did not go inside the cabinet over the toilet when you were taking pictures of the bathroom and open the cabinet and see if there were gummies in there, did you?
I did not.
Okay. Also, there was a picture that has come in your Matterport where there was a little dot above the refrigerator where you said that some gummies in a clear plastic bag were found, right?
Correct.
And you didn't go above the kitchen and open that cabinet and take any pictures that morning?
No, I did not. You're referring to the morning of the death?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you for helping me be specific. I'll try to keep my dates straight. So, since you were personally the one who knows where every single thing was found, isn't it true that all the gummies, with the exception of the gummies that were found in the jacket in the closet, were all stored high up where children would not be able to reach them?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so whether these details are crucial to the case or not, is this strategy making some headway with the jury? Let's talk about it. Let's bring back in attorney John Phillips and investigator Dan Murphy. Okay, so John Phillips, let's start with you, please. Your thoughts, is this having an impact on the jury?
I mean, you talk about, whether you can buy justice as a criminal defendant. You certainly can help your odds by hiring great counsel. No slight to the public defender's office across the country, but there are good lawyers that just do well with creating reasonable doubt, and she's doing a good job just kind of wrapping the errors of the investigation up to try to create reasonable doubt.
Yeah, and I got to shout out all the public defenders that I know, because some of the best defense attorneys I know are public defenders or have been public
100%.
defenders, and she's one. So there we have it. Sergeant Murphy, to you next. Your thoughts when we're thinking about this fentanyl poisoning that allegedly happened, and this substance, this synthetic opioid that can be deadly on the microgram level. I've been telling my audience, think of little grains of salt when we think about, micrograms and what could be lethal. How much does this technician's work matter overall to the big case?
Juries are very human, which means if they like somebody, they'll believe what they say. If they don't like somebody, they won't. If they think they're being lied to, they'll get very upset, and they will not want to credit that person with giving good testimony. It's a very interesting thing to work with a jury as a witness in a criminal trial. In this case, whether or not they take what is being said now by the defense, and I think the defense counsel is doing a good job breaking down the various processes and procedures and how they may have impacted this case. Do they have anything to do with what happened to the body? Remember, in any homicide case, the significance of the body is paramount. It says what happened to them. But where those substances in him came from and where they can be traced to is very important. So it remains to be seen as to whether or not this will impact the jury significantly, but it is highlighting some things. For example, the bottle that was used allegedly to carry the fentanyl that was found with the body. It's the ME's protocol, according to this witness, that bottle be to stay with the body and go to the ME's office for evaluation. Was it evaluated? Did they ever do an evaluation on it? Was it ever? Apparently, she never, or no investigator took the initiative to go pick that bottle up, send it to the lab, have it tested, which to me is a bit of a glaring omission. If you're trying to say something, even if it's just before trial, at some point you're going to want to have that done. It looks bad that they didn't do that. And if your theory is that that bottle contained the drugs and you can't prove that, you have a hole in your theory.
Right. You're right, Sarge. Yeah, and especially 'cause Corey Richens offers up there about how she gave him a Moscow Mule to celebrate. You know, she's given him the final drink he drank, apparently, you know, according to her. And so, to your point, there were things that should have been done. I have a clip I want to play for you both now. Let's turn to how the family of Eric Richens had suspicions. Here's his sister on cross describing why she had this bad feeling when it came to Miss Corey.
You felt it was important that this officer know that your sister-in-law had a motive? What was your reason for telling the officer that information?
I had an overwhelming feeling come over me that I should let someone know.
Why? What was your overwhelming feeling?
That I should let someone know.
Because you believed it was suspicious? The death?
Honestly, at that time, I had no idea what was going on. I just had an overwhelming feeling. I had just barely talked to my brother. He was fantastic. When I talked to him just a couple hours before, I had an overwhelming feeling I should tell someone about this, so I did.
Oh, John Phillips, I wanted more from her. I felt that she had so much more to give, but she held back. Your thoughts?
She did. She either got a little nervous or just, you know, maybe that's as far as she'd go. But, you know, the family, you know, people that go through high-profile divorces or you know, toxic relationships kind of understand that the family of the other side is going to be the first to be manipulated. But they also know both parties, and if you do know something, if you suspect something, you should say something. You know, because these days, and we see it every week, that, you know, marriage is leading to murder, and these are just a percent of the cases, but there's so many warning signs, and I think that's what's going to come from the rest of the trial. Is we're going to get into her search history, we're going to get into the fentanyl purchasing and Robert Josh Grossman, who's going to testify about the affair. Like, all of this stuff is good, you know, good mustard on the sandwich, but bring me the meat, please.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. John, a follow-up question for you, please, with respect to Katie Richens, and feel free to disagree with me. I have a feeling that one of the lawyers who prepped her might have frightened her in instructing her to not say too much or answer the questions. I just, for some reason, I don't know, and I have no inside information, this is just my experience as a trial attorney and trial teacher, that I bet somebody frightened her into not saying too much because she had an open-ended question there. She had the why? Why did you think that? Do you agree?
You can do that, you know, and sometimes you want a deposition to just, or you know, any interrogation to be just, you know, Q&A if you're trying to defend it. But at some point, you know, this is really important. This is your brother, and so I agree with you, Julie. It just almost there, but you're nervous. You got death on the table. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, I have a feeling. For right now in my head, I'm going with blaming the lawyers that prepped her. I have no blame for her, just sympathy and love for that family. God bless them. They're going through a tragedy right now, and hopefully they can continue healing from the loss of their loved one. John Phillips, Dan Murphy, always a delight to have you both on the program. Thank you so much for everything this morning, and thank you, my friends at home, for watching Opening Statements. If you like the show, watch it again. Tell your friends about it. Go to courttv.com, click on the Shows tab. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on courttv.com.